All right, now we're ready. Welcome to me, Tina. Hi, everyone. How's everyone's doing? So welcome to my channel. I would like to thank you for tuning in to this session of live facial reading by Travis Field. I'm excited about it because I have just like a little basic, facial reading, but it's very hard to find someone who can actually read face quite well. I haven't had a facial reading by Travis before, so this is the first time you guys are going to hear at the same time as I have. I have not heard from him before about my facial reading from him before. So this is gonna be fun and exciting. I told him just give it to me, good or bad. I can take that live here. I'm that kind of person. So let's welcome Travis Field. Travis, how are you doing? Can you share with the audience about your background and where you're about in when it comes to this facial reading and your experience, your credentials?
Oh yeah, sure. My background is in massage therapy. We actually went to the same school. And we studied orthopedic massage therapy, which was primarily for treating pain management. And actually during the internship was when I really started to go see different types of medical practitioners to see where I could take this, body work to. And I worked with dentists and I worked with chiropractors and I worked with athletic trainers and physical therapists. And it wasn't until I actually worked with the acupuncturists that I really noticed that people were getting incredible results. And I tried acupuncture and it didn't do anything for me. This is kind of a long story, so I'll make it quick, but I lost function in my left hand and acupuncture was the thing that brought it back. And after that point, I thought, wow, I really want to go study this. So I started studying this and it really gave me this unique holistic perspective on the body that was so valuable for body workers, because all of a sudden you're working with people, not just with their symptoms, but you're working with them on a personal level, because, there's no switch in the body that says, here's the mind and here's the body and here's the spirit. It's like it doesn't work that way. It's all one. And we're kind of taught it compartmentalized in school, but it doesn't really work that way. So I actually found my teacher in facial reading and diagnosis because in acupuncture school when I went, they talk a lot about facial diagnosis, and it was actually the original branch of diagnosis. Oftentimes you see an acupuncturist look at the tongue or feel the pulse, but originally this was just for herbs. And I think tongue reading is only in Chinese culture maybe 300 years old, 400 years old, but the facial diagnosis, not a lot of people could do. And I met my teacher, Lillian. She was giving a lecture at the symposium. And she was really an amazing person and gave this incredible talk on emotional alchemy and just how emotions can affect our body. And I was so fascinated by it because she could really start to see and peel apart the emotional underlay of why people were sick, what was going on with them. And she could do that just by looking at their face. And it was interesting because even though it sounds very esoteric, it's actually not, where it's like if someone winces and has a lot of pain lines, it's actually showing that they're in pain. So she taught me that the Chinese were natural scientists and that they really observed over the course of a long period of time of why people get certain wrinkles, why certain facial features start to change, and how different aspects of the face can show different underlying health conditions. So it's interesting, to see all these different things. And it's funny, it's like, for example, these lines that so many people get Botox, they're actually called anger lines. So they show that you're feeling some kind of frustration, some kind of impatience, some kinds of annoyance, something that all of us actually have. And, I'll be the first person to tell you, I've seen wrinkles go away and that they don't have to be permanent, which is the interesting thing. If you do the work to let go of the emotion, the wrinkles go away. Or if you ever see a client come in and they have a lot of the diagonal lines here, it's actually showing that they have pain lines and that they might not be eating enough fat in their diet. So they might need more fat to buffer the myelin sheath, which actually helps coat and buffer pain. So fat buffers pain. So it's interesting. You can actually learn so much about someone just by their facial features. It's a pretty cool tool.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, when I discovered about you having this, ability to be able to read face, I'm like, well, bring it on, Travis. Let's show the audience here because, like you said, there's not a lot of people know how to do this. So I'm excited to get a facial reading from you right now, live. Let's do it, Travis.
Oh,
You
all right.
tell
Well,
me what I need to know, and you can tell the audience too what you just showed earlier about this line, and also here, pretty interesting. So now I'm going to pay attention. What about those who got like Botox and surgery and all that stuff? Would that change the meaning of what are you supposed to give to the clients or to people you read to?
yeah, I don't want to be judgmental about that because, I think it's a very personal choice if you want to do anything to your face. But The way I was taught is that like everything that you change to your face can affect your personality. And it's interesting to see actually a lot of the times people that do get like nose jobs, for example, sometimes the bone grows back, and it's actually showing that when you have the bump on the nose right here, it actually shows that you desire to be the first, the best, or the only. It's called the pioneer's nose, and actually that's why I was always taught that when the Chinese people first saw like the Spaniards and like the Europeans, they were shocked that they had such big noses. And it was because they were brave enough to leave their homelands and to go other places, and that's why it's called the pioneer's nose. So it's interesting. I've seen actually a lot of women specifically. I have this one client. She had to think about 3 nose jobs, and the bone kept growing back. And it's because she's a very powerful business executive, and she's kind of supposed to have that extra little bit of authority because in the Chinese 5 elements, the nose relates to the metal element, which is all about like order. It's about execution. It's about authority, and it's about boundaries. And she is very good at these things. And it's just funny because she keeps trying to change her nose, but she's actually also supposed to be an authority. So it's interesting. I don't really know why it is that her body keeps rejecting this nose job, but it's fascinating. And when it comes to Botox, I've seen some interesting studies about it, but I think that people can do whatever they want to do, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you can also to let go of wrinkles and let them go away by doing some of the interpersonal work, which is actually quite easier to do than a lot of people think.
Okay. Now, in your study, Travis, why should a person get a facial reading? How would it benefit to an individual?
Well, it can help with a lot of different things because ultimately, I think the most powerful thing that I've found is it helps someone identify where they're at and what they're feeling. And then also, too, can help them figure out what direction they may feel like they're going. There's different kinds of, uses for face reading, whether it's for business application, which is where my teacher's family comes from. It's for health and diagnosis, which is from the Chinese medicine perspective. It was used for matchmaking. It was used for also, I don't want to call it fortune telling, but prognostication, where if you can see someone's patterns, you can actually quite easily see where they're going. And there's this concept in Taoism called the original face. It's a very Taoist term. And if you look at the original symbol for the Tao, I'll have to send you a picture of it so you can show your viewers. It actually shows a face with hair that's like the antenna, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and the chin running on a path. And it's actually showing that Tao Day, Tao meaning the way, and Day being virtue, how do you do yourself in the most virtuous way? And I was always taught that the purpose of life, or the meaning of life, is to be yourself as much as you can be. And you do this by combining all of the talents, all the gifts, all the abilities, all the desires and interests that you have with the wisdom of your life experience. And then you kind of do what the Taoists would call alchemy by combining all these things with your internal spirit, what sets your soul on fire, and then you give yourself back to the world as a gift. And you kind of glow in this way. So a facial reading can actually help you remind yourself who you are, because a lot of the times you might try to conform or try to fit into other people's perspective of what you think you should be, and you might say, oh well, I'm not really authoritative, but you actually have these really strong cheekbones that show, well, actually yes you are. Or you might say, I'm not very driven, but then you might have these big eyebrows that show, actually yes you are. So actually it's really valuable to know yourself in the world, and it helps you remember who you are, because that way you don't do as much of the projecting or conforming, and you don't really judge other people because you know who you are and you know that they're very different than you.
Okay, good. Then I want to find out today how the facial reading is going to be helping me, with where I'm going, or how it will benefit me today. Then, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's jump into it.
Let's jump into it, guys. And we're gonna learn from him, right?
Yeah, sure. The thing that jumps out to me the most about you is actually your nose. You have this really gorgeous nose, and it's very long, which shows that you probably have very strong ideals, very strong ambitions. You have a strong drive to achieve. Is that true for you?
Yeah.
You have a lot that you want to do in this lifetime.
Do I have a lot of what? Can you repeat?
You have a lot that you want to do in this lifetime.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah, and it's like when you have a really long nose, and actually yours points at the end, which actually is called the nose for news. And it shows that you really like finding out information. You like solving problems. You want to know stuff. And it's so funny. That's why I keep telling you, I think you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, because you have this really wonderful curiosity to find out what other people are doing, how they're applying it. And you've always been that way, even since I knew you in school, where you just wanted to see how other people do things. And it's like, it's your nose. It's called the nose for news. And because you actually have a really long nose, it actually shows this combination of having a strong desire to achieve, but also to having a strong desire to figure things out. It's like you're a great problem solver. If I ever got put into a mystery room, or what are those called? The escape rooms? I'd want you on my
Escape
team.
room, yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is so true in a way, because I've always been drawn to, I used to watch FBI, unsolved mysteries, investigation, anything astrology, anything that have to do like with solving and figure out things. Yes. So you're
Yeah,
right.
and I bet you figured it out most of the time before the answers came.
Some, yeah, majority of it. Yeah. But
Yeah,
not
and
all.
then to tie into this, you actually have these really nice upturned eyes. So the inner canthus right here is actually lower than the outer canthus. And this is actually showing someone with a very fiery mind. It shows that the synapses fire very fast. So you're very curious. Your mind works very fast like a computer. It's like you're always thinking about something. You're very curious. You'd be a good writer, because also too, you have the inner canthuses right here, which are very sharp, which shows that you're very good with your words, but maybe sometimes you have to be a little bit careful about not using your words as weapons.
Well, guy, he's right about that. Sometimes to say what I feel, and yeah, I've been told quite a bit about writing, but I don't think I'm a good writer myself. However, I'm a good storyteller, I think.
Well, that's half the battle of writing. And I was always taught that whatever the talents are, you can use them in different ways. And that's actually more. I'm teaching a class at National Holistic Institute on the 18th about a little bit about facial reading, but also too, it's more for body workers, but about like how to find the meridians and palpate. But it's interesting. We're going to be talking about Jing, which is the concept of your inheritance. It's the concept of your body's physicality, but it's also all the talents and the abilities and the gifts that you inherit, and they can be used in different ways. That's kind of the interesting thing. So just because you're good with words doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a writer. It could also mean that you could be a great speaker, because tying it back in, you actually also have the points at the edges of your mouth, which shows a lot of fire. And it shows that you can also very easily express what you're feeling. So it's like you don't really have a problem. Like if you feel something, you have no problem saying it.
Yeah, that's true. That's very accurate. I easily express my emotion, my feeling. Yes.
Yeah, and then which is it's a lovely trait, and I think that's why you're such a good interviewer, because at the same time you have these great cheekbones, which shows that you can be an authority. You're actually not supposed to work for someone else. I don't think you would do so well if you were being bossed around. You need to be the boss.
I actually never really, well, most of my life I have always been self-employed. Very hard for me to work for somebody else. They work a couple jobs for somebody else, but they gave me a lot of freedom. So, and they're not over my shoulder telling me what to do. So I was able to work for them just for a short time. But majority of my life, I've always been my own. Yes.
Yeah, so you have all these really wonderful traits that actually show someone who would be really great at interviewing. All the things that you're doing, they're right on. And it's kind of funny how sometimes we tend to gravitate towards the things somewhere inside of ourselves we know we're supposed to be doing.
It's funny because I never thought about doing this or interview anyone. No, that has never come across my mind at all until just recently, this year. I just kind of started doing this YouTube interview because I just feel, I don't know, I just been guided and I just follow my intuition.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because there's a very famous, I mean, the Chinese were really big on destiny. And, there's the idea that when it comes to destiny, at first, it feels very easy, almost effortless, almost like Wu Wei in a sense, effortless action. And then it gets a little bit challenging again, but then it gets easy again. And that's how you actually know you're doing the right thing. It almost feels like doors just open. And then it just happens so effortlessly. And then I forgot what her name is. I think it's Carolyn Mace. She talks about like, the calling of the soul, and how, every couple of years, if something in your heart says, hey, you have to go do this thing. And if you ignore it, it gets louder and louder and louder. But there's something inside of us. It's almost like an internal compass that directs us to where we're supposed to be going. So I think you found the direction you're supposed to be going.
Oh, good. Good to hear that. It makes sense. I like the way what you just said it, it's easy, which has come quite easily for me. I thought it was going to be difficult for me to express myself, on the video here in front of people. And when you say it may have some challenges later on, but it'll get better, which it kind of makes sense to me. It can't always be perfect. And I'm sure with that, we grow with the challenges that may come along.
Yeah,
so I'm ready for that. Yes.
Yeah, good. The one thing I'll tell you is like you have this really great strong brow bone, which shows it's called the sign of automatic resistance. So it means that you can't be easily controlled or manipulated. It's like you can't like people can't tell you what to do. You'll fight them. So it's just like if you get told what to do, you might end up finding that you're resisting a little bit, like the walls come up. So it's actually telling you that you're really meant to find your own direction, because when people start to try and come in and tell you, hey, Tina, do this instead, you might find yourself resisting and being very unhappy.
That I'm laughing because years ago, not going to go into detail so much. Yes, you were right about that. If someone told me what to do, I tend to rebel.
That's good. That means you
Yeah,
can't be
especially
controlled.
especially if they were not polite or rude to me or become so dominant over me. I'm very, very easygoing person, and I'm very, very polite person. That's the way I was brought up from my culture. So, but at the same time, if a person was kind of like, a little rough and not respectful, I really push back and I walk away. That's it. Easy for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually showing that you have a strong drive to fight, which is a good thing. It's actually it's a little extra drive that not everyone has. So just watch that, because it can get you in trouble.
Right. Yeah, I'm pretty much quite have my own mind, definitely.
But that's
And
why I
not
think it's good that you work for yourself and that you've always been that way, because you kind of have the signs of someone who is meant to work for themselves. Now,
just by reading a
all your
face.
Yeah, well, you just have the signs. Like, what you do with the bag of tricks is up to you. But, it just kind of shows that when you have the strong cheekbones, which shows that you can be an authority, when you have the strong brow bone, that means that you can't be manipulated or controlled or told what to do. Yeah, it doesn't sound like you should work for anyone.
No, most of the time I'm on my own.
Yeah.
Most of my life, I would say about 90% of my life, 95% actually of my life. Since I was young, I'm always been on my own.
Yeah, you're a powerful woman. I wouldn't want to mess with you.
I wouldn't say that. But definitely, hold my own. I hold my own power. But I'm not a follower, and pretty much, if I'm set, I mean, I listen. I'm very open to everyone's opinion, but I'm also, I stand on my own pretty well.
You do, and do you know what I'm asking? How old are you?
Oh, I wouldn't mind telling you that, guys. 59 this year.
Wow.
You didn't know my age, right? You didn't know my age at all. You just know I'm older.
No, the reason
When
I'm
we
asking
met.
you, because each part of the face represents a different decade. So the forehead's the 20s, the eyebrows and the eyes are the 30s, the nose is the 40s, the field trim is the 50s, and the mouth is the 60s. And then the 70s and the 80s are down here. So, you have this gorgeous mouth, which actually shows your 60s are supposed to be a really great decade for you. So
Wait,
it's
what?
like
Can you repeat that?
your 60s are going to be a great decade for you.
Oh, good.
And
Awesome.
it's interesting too, because I'm asking because you have these great purpose lines here. And it's interesting, these actually are called purpose lines, or I think some people call them the Fa Ling lines. But it represents the emotional colon, or if you do any palm reading, it's like the lifeline of the face. I don't do palms, but it's like the lifeline. And when you have these, it shows that you know who you are and where you're going in the world. And it's interesting because on the right side, yours is a bit stronger. The right side of the face is the public side. The left side of the face is the private side. So it actually shows that you've probably shown to the world who you're supposed to be and who you are, but you might not always feel that way.
Makes sense.
Yes, that's why I think this interview thing, watch these lines. They might, I'm learning to love these ones because from a vanity perspective, I don't always appreciate them, but they actually mean something really great. So it's they show that you actually know who you are and where you're going. And that's actually really important. And you need to have these after 50.
Yeah, I do feel that at this point in my life, I pretty much know myself quite well, know my flaws, know my quality, know where I'm going, which I didn't feel that even 10 years ago. But at this point in my life, I feel like a different person. Yeah. Like I feel like I'm grown up, and at this point, and it took many years to really grow up and really learn about myself. It's a lot of, that's why I'm doing this kind of talk and channel. It's about self development. And I have been on this journey since I was little. I would say roughly about 9 years, 8, 9 years old.
Yeah.
So a lot of self-awareness at that age. So yeah.
Yeah, I was always taught that there are certain times in life that are very karmic. Right around, but before the age of 3, the Chinese believed that you could see who a person really is. So if you ever any baby photos, it's interesting to see because babies are so different, before they've been conditioned by the world.
Right.
Then from around the ages of like 5 to like 9, the talents, the things that we tend to gravitate towards tend to be very important for later on in life. And that's why it's actually really valuable if you know anyone that knew you as a child, because they can tell you things that maybe you don't remember about yourself, or maybe things that you gravitated towards that you kind of forgot, because those end up playing a big role later in life. And that's actually why I think the facial reading and diagnosis can be so valuable, because it teaches you to look at the whole life, because we don't do that in the West. We look
No.
at where we're at right now, and maybe we'll plan for 5 to 10 years, but we're actually meant to look at the wholeness of our lives, because that's actually a holistic perspective, right?
Now let me ask you, can we you talk about a child, can you read their facial at that age and be able to tell them what the child is supposed to be doing or which direction they're going?
You're not supposed to. The reason is because they say up until 25, you have the face you're born with. 25 to 50, you have the face that you have created, and then 50 on, you have the face that you deserve. And what that is really saying is that actually before someone's 25, I mean, the brain hasn't even developed. And it's really interesting because I was always taught that you're not supposed to do a full reading until someone turns 20, 25 Chinese age, 24 Western age, because the Chinese believe that you're 1 after you're born because of the time spent in utero. So that's actually the most important year of life is when you're inside your mom. But up until that point, you're really not supposed to direct someone too much, because they're still figuring out who they are. And if you tell them too much, you might actually change that. And that's not something you're supposed to do. So you want to wait till after. So you can validate children and you can encourage them. My niece is 16 now, and she always says, look at my face, look at my face. Tell me what you see. And I tell her good things. And, like I kind of try to guide her, but I don't ever tell her who she is. I let her figure that out on her own.
Wow, wow. So you say you teach this facial reading as well, right?
Yeah, I'll be teaching a class on the 20th, for an introduction to signs of Jing on the face. So it should be, actually, I'll tell you some things now. You don't actually have any of these signs, which is really nice. But as I said before, in Chinese culture, Jing is this idea, and it's in the medicine too, that you have this kind of battery in the body. It's all the talents, all the gifts, all the abilities. It's the potential of the human body. It's your physicality. And, we create chi, or, for lack of a better word, energy. That's not a great definition of it. But, we build chi through air and through food to buffer the use of Jing, because the Chinese believe that we have this set amount. Our bodies kind of have a capacity throughout this life. And there's signs on the face that show that you're overusing the Jing. The first one is right here on the bridge of the nose. And this is actually showing, this is also the area of the spleen and the pancreas. And anytime you see a horizontal line here, it's showing that you're not eating food in a way that is creating enough chi for your body. You're probably eating too much stuff. Your blood sugar is too low. You might be eating too much junk food. You're not eating in a way that really benefits. And that's actually why a lot of people after 40, they really can't get away with the diets that they've had for a long time. And I don't want to throw them under the bus, so I'm not going to say who it is, but I have someone in my life that drinks rock stars every day. He eats junk food, fast food several times a week, and he's skinny. So people wouldn't really expect that he has all these health issues. And now he's 41, and it's starting to catch up with him. And he has a really strong line right here. So this is actually saying that you need to eat foods in a way that really nourish your body. And the face will give you signs that you are not, you're overusing your body in certain ways. And I was always taught you need to eat the sun and breathe the moon. And what that means is that you need to eat foods that are so fresh, that are full of ling, or full of, the nature from energy. For example, like when you go to the farmer's market, the strawberries that you get that are fresh in season in the summer are so different than like the kind of white sour ones that you get at the grocery store, because they're just very different. So the foods that are fresh from nature nourish our bodies in a way that nothing else can. And that's actually
still
really
has a life force energy.
Exactly. So we need to eat these foods that really nourish our bodies. And this is saying that you're not eating in a way that really nourishes you. And it's kind of like asking you to do intuitive eating. You should eat foods that say, wow, this is exactly what my body needed. And it's the kind of food that you think about that actually like really kind of almost gives you energy when you think about it. So, for example, like whenever your mouth salivates, you're creating digestive enzymes, in the saliva to help you break down and digest the food. And that's actually why it's like so good to eat foods that you crave. Now, it's different to say like if you crave brownies, it's not that kind of craving.
Right.
It's the kind of craving that's telling you you need something really good. So, for example, when I've been working too hard, I will tend to crave soup because soup really nourishes my body. Or like if I've been kind of eating a little bit, I've been working too hard, I'll tend to crave like green vegetables to kind of bring kind of some energy back to my body. So it just depends. Sometimes I crave like, some sugar, but that's actually your body's way of telling you either that you've probably burned a little bit too much energy, you need more protein, or you need more fat. And the thing is, when with all these markings on the face, you can't necessarily see what's going on, but you can see, or sorry, exactly what's going on, but you can see that something's there. So if you see this line, you can't tell someone what they need to eat. They have to figure that out on their own. And that's actually where I think it's very powerful, because a lot of the times when we go to doctors or when we go to healthcare providers or anyone really that we hire, I think we forget that, they're our employees. And if we don't like what they have to say, we should go find someone else that tells us something that's more in alignment with who we are and how we want to live. And that's not to discredit any healthcare providers, but I think this is a reminder that we know what's best for us, and we need to stop looking for validation from other people that aren't living in our bodies.
Now, you mentioned that the facial reading also tell about our health.
Right. Yeah. And actually, one of the things, Tina, I wanted to ask you, how was the recovery for COVID for you?
Well, it took about 1.5 years for recovery. At first, the first 6 to 8 months, it was difficult because it hit me hard when I got it. I was in the hospital, and I'm not sure if I share with you, I almost died in the hospital during the first week. But for some reason, I just came around. But I was giving a lot of antibiotics and steroids, so I think it's really kind of destroyed me, my health too. So it took me a while, but I fought for it. I forced myself to go walk, and I changed the way I ate my foods totally. I threw away my whole freezer of the ice cream that I have stored before COVID. So, I just got rid of all that. And I started to learn a lot about nutrition, a lot more than before, and really took nutrition a lot seriously now.
I think that's called reversing the trauma, where you find the good, and it puts you on the path. And I think that's actually what caused you to do your interviews, because you couldn't massage, right?
Yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
But do you find yourself having any residual phlegm or any residual like shortness of breath, or how's your lung function?
Right now, perfect. Right now, it's good. But
Good.
it took a while. It's been exactly over 2 years now. No, yeah, it's been over 2 years. But the first year and a half, I still felt that phlegm. Or when I went to the gym, I still only half an hour light workout, I would feel exhaustion in my lung, like until the time I would go to bed. But now I just went back to CrossFit like a month and a half now, and hey, yeah, I'm back to I mean, not where I was with in terms of strength, but definitely with stamina, endurance. I caught up,
Yeah,
yeah,
the
little by
only
little.
thing that I saw in regards to health, because the pictures you sent me are actually quite old. I think we talked about this months ago.
Yeah,
Um, but your cheeks look much better now. But this is the immune system of the face, and it's also the lungs.
yeah.
And this is actually showing when there's a little bit of like a hollowing here, which actually it looks really good right now. But it's actually showing that the lung function is a little bit compromised. It can show anxiety. It can show like a little bit of an inability to breathe deeply.
Yes.
It's interesting because it looks very different now, and it looks great. So just I think whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
Yeah. Well, 6 months ago, I still had a problem with my lungs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Six
shows.
months
Look,
ago.
if you take a picture now and then look at the pictures that you sent me, it's very different.
Yeah.
Your cheeks are much fuller,
Well,
which is a good thing.
I remember looking at myself when I got a hospital. I looked like I aged 20, 30 years, even a lot older. It's
Tina, even
crazy.
if you did age 20 or 30 years, you'd look younger than most people.
Oh, thank you. That's sweet of you to say that. But it's just like you really I look dead. I look sick. There's no life force energy. I mean, I could tell. It's not like the eyes sparkles with life force energy, you know what I'm saying? When a person is in good health, but I could look at myself in the mirror and I can tell that I lack a lot of chi energy. And it took a long time, but I saw myself gradually getting better and better and better every month, you
You know,
know.
the interesting thing I'll tell you is that because you have such a strong nose and strong cheekbones, which are your strongest features, that actually shows very strong metal energy, strong lungs. And it's funny because I'll tell you a story. I have this client who is a clinical psychiatrist, and it's so funny because she likes to smoke a lot of cannabis, which there's no judgment. I know that's like a big thing in
Yeah.
California. And she was having issues with her lungs, and I kind of looked at her and I said, well, your lungs look very strong, like, you know. And she's like, well, why are you saying that? I'm having all these issues with my lungs. They're saying I have chronic pneumonia. And I said, well, have you gone through any grief lately? And her face turned white, and she goes, why are you asking me that? And I was like, well, sometimes, you know, grief, or, you know, the feel of losing something, it's not necessarily, because grief is just loss, it doesn't matter what kind. It can oftentimes show up as a lung issue. And oftentimes the organ that is the strongest, we tend to stress the most, because that's how we know how to stress it, because we tend to like to stress what is strongest, you know, because that's just how humans are. If we know we have a lot of something, that's what we'll tend to spend, you know. So for example, only people that have really strong livers can deal with addiction, because people that don't have strong livers can't deal with all that toxicity. They'll be like, no way, I'm not going to drink that, you know. But anyways, I said, did you have any grief? And she goes, well, you know, in this last year, I had to put down a dog. I had 3 patients commit suicide, and my mom just died. And I was like,
wow.
well, when did your symptoms start? And she goes, probably about a month after I had to put my dog down. And it was really fascinating, because actually the issue was that her lungs, it wasn't that her lungs weren't strong, it was that she had dealt with so much grief that she hadn't processed yet. And actually she had a really big shadowing back here, which was
Wow.
showing old grief. And, you know, she did deep breathing, and she actually was a very avid Tai Chi practitioner. So after about 6 months, she was much better. But it was interesting for her, because she was someone who dealt with people's emotions, and she forgot to look at her own. And it was interesting because she was under this impression that her lungs weren't strong. And I said, no, your lungs are too strong. You need to let go of that grief, because they're so strong, they're holding on to it. Because in the Chinese 5 elements, which in my opinion was the greatest gift the Chinese gave to humanity, it's every organ represents, there are kind of these different 5 vibrational frequencies, where every single element represents all these different things. So if you can actually learn to treat the element, you can learn to treat all these different aspects of things. So for example, the lungs are related to the metal element, which is also related to grief, which is also related to autumn, which is also related to the acrid taste, which has all these different functions on the body. So we kind of tend to stress our strongest elements. And for her, it was actually about getting into gratitude, because that's the transcendent emotion of grief.
So let me ask you this. I mean, from what you just shared with me, Travis, you can actually tell what their emotional mental issue from looking at their face.
Sometimes,
And
yeah.
yeah, you can tell all the connection in their physical body, energetic body. I mean, the whole thing. This is not just a facial reading to me. Then this is more like a healing.
Yeah, I think it's a very powerful tool, and that's actually the way I
I
was
mean,
taught.
psychological, really. I mean, you know, because when you just share with me just now, you know, it totally makes sense. It's just not just about, you know, in from my background, when we do the facial reading or palm reading, it's like to read our own destiny or where you're going. It's kind of somewhat kind of like fortune telling. You know, that's another way to look at it. But from what you just share with me, it goes deeper than that. You know, you tell about your health and what you can do with that. You know, what you share with your client earlier about her lungs and her grief, which she has to work with. That's like sort of the psychological work as well.
Yeah, that's actually been the most powerful aspect. And it's funny, because she was actually the one that taught me emotions occur on a cellular level, meaning that, like, you know, trapped emotions in the body can create inflammation. And it's funny because the Chinese knew this, and they would call it trapped fire. And inflammation is heat. So it's interesting. If emotions become chronic, they turn hot and create inflammation in the body. And now Western science is starting to validate this, which is very cool.
Well, it's true because, you know, when we do this body work, you will notice that most of the clients that came in have information. And for the longest time, I was trying to figure out how to get rid of this information. And I thought maybe certain kind of specific foods would
It
help.
can be.
Yeah, it does, but everyone's different. But the main thing that I discover is like sugar and processed food. That's what caused all the information. This is just from my COVID journey recovery. So anyway, what's interesting about what you just shared as well, you mentioned about strong metal in me from my facial, which is, you didn't know my date of birth or anything like that, but I was already told that my strongest element is metal. So
Yeah, that'd
that's
be
kind of,
interesting. Maybe another time we'll do your 4 pillars of destiny. Because I did study some of the Chinese astrology, which has been very fascinating. It was on my journey to learn feng shui, but it's interesting to see how the Chinese astrology matches the face. Very fascinating.
wow, that's amazing. Yeah, because when you brought it up, I'm like, how did he know? Did I give him the date of birth? I remember I didn't do that to you.
Do
That's
you remember if you
amazing.
were do you remember if you were yang metal or yin metal?
I believe yin,
Yin, okay.
yin
That's
metal. Yeah.
that's a beautiful element. It's the performer.
So is a performer?
Oftentimes, yin metal is like it's like jewelry. It's gold. It's very attractive, and it's like the glittering on the water. It sparkles and just kind of
Mhm.
has a very alluring aspect about it. That's why you see a lot of performers have this element in their astrology.
Oh, interesting, fascinating. Well, being on YouTube is a performer as well.
Yeah, you have to have enough fire to be able to do it. You have to have enough desire to be in front of the camera and to be seen.
Yeah, yeah. But I don't know. I just, I enjoy doing it so far. So, and I learn a lot from different speakers coming on. So I enjoy that. So I figure, you know what, we all should do what we love to do, enjoy, and just keep doing it. That's what I'm doing. Like this right now, this moment, I got you on to talk about my facial reading, and it's quite fascinating because it's like I'm learning something from you at the moment.
Oh,
So, and I'm sure the audience are learning as well, listening to this. And they're probably curious about their face now. Right, guys? Yeah.
yeah, it's a really cool tool, and actually that's why I wanted to teach these classes for body workers because I'm finding now it's being able you can find out so much more about what's going on with someone because oftentimes you can feel what's going on in their body with your hands. Especially too, we went to such a great program. I think you had Grace on, and I watched that interview where she talks about the neuromuscular therapy that we learned from National Holistic Institute, and that's
So
been
you
such a
teach
power.
online? Sorry to cut you off. Do you teach online too? Just for the audience who is not from California, Los Angeles?
Maybe you can help me do that because I haven't done that yet. My first class is going to be on the 18th. And it's going to be the 18th through the 20th. And the goal for that was because sometimes you can work the muscle all day long, but it's the mind that needs to relax. So being able to look at the face can actually tell you what's going on. And then if you can see what organ is being stressed too, you can either know what meridian is the issue, you can know what kind of aspects are happening. And just like if you're into the nutritional therapy, I was always taught that nutrition is one of the fastest ways to balance your elements because like that's one of the best ways to change the elements of the body. So it's like you can make nutritional recommendations and it's really powerful. So just to be able to see someone, and I think that's actually the power of a face reading is to be able to validate someone for who they are and they can feel seen. Because a lot of the times, I think sometimes we need someone to remind us of who we are and where we're going.
Oh, wow. It's fascinating. I'm glad that you're doing this work, Travis, because I think you can help a lot of people, especially when it comes to their health and well-being.
I'll tell you a funny story. I had a client the other day because every once in a while, it's like I'm Western. As far as I know, I'm not Chinese. I've always liked the culture. I'm Hispanic and white, and I sometimes wonder, I'm like, is this stuff real? And I had this client not too long ago, and I touched his ears. And the reason I touch his ears, I'll tell you about that another time. But I felt that there was hair on his ears, and I was like, oh, that's a sign of heart disease. So anytime there's ear hair, it shows a family history or hereditary heart disease. And I thought to myself, I was like, is this real? So I asked him, I was like, okay, hey, I have to ask you a question. Do you have a family history of heart disease? And again, like the look on his face was shocked. And he said, why are you asking me that? I said, oh man, I'll just tell you. I was like, well, in my experience, and I try to make it sound as practical as possible, ear hair can show hereditary heart disease. And he goes, my dad died of a heart attack.
Oh, wow.
So it's actually really powerful. Or, another really easy thing to see is when you lose the outer edge of the eyebrow, that shows thyroidism. And Western medicine does recognize some facial diagnosis, for example, like both in Eastern and Western, yellowing of the face is jaundice, whiteness of the face is anemia or a blood deficiency. What else is there? The butterfly rash, that's lupus. Redness of the face can be rosacea or inflammation. So it does validate these.
Wow. So if like the audience, they're not from the state locally, they can actually get a reading with you through
Yeah.
Zoom like this, right? Like how we're doing right now.
Yeah, I haven't set up my website yet, but we can feel free to put my email and they can reach out to me.
I will definitely put Travis information, email underneath description, guys. So if you would like to connect with Travis, please do, because I think he's very talented. I met Travis, several years ago through school, and you were a teacher at the time too. You were teaching other people, and you were good because you were teaching me how to do. I don't know if you remember. Uh, um, God, what is the name of it?
Internal job work, the TMJ work.
TMJ. Do you remember that?
A little bit.
I had a client that I met her mom at the spa, guy. So there's nothing to do with facial, but it has to do with, how we work with the pain management on, client. And you said massage therapist, but actually we are a neuromuscular therapist. And a lot of people don't know what it is anyway. I had my first client whose mom told me that she took her to many doctors, and all of them would say either she had surgery or they couldn't help her. So about past 5 years, she's been through a lot of pain. She couldn't chew anything or eat anything solid. And she was about 18 at a time. So I said, well, I can give it a try. And I came to you and you show me because, we learned, but we never use it. So sometimes I kind of want to touch up, and you taught me a great technique. Excellent. It was only one time only. And I worked with her for about a year. Travis, she no longer had that problem. She's able to eat. He wasn't able to do that 2-finger test, open her mouth without pain. When I touch her face, she would scream at the time in the beginning. And now she's a beautiful young lady who's like want to do this work as well. So thanks to you, because you are very, very talented, not only, very talented in facial reading, because everything you told me about today is quite accurate, actually. You don't know much about me at all, even though we met through school and you taught me. We weren't really having a personal conversations for you to know about me, you see. So for you to read about me and told me a lot about myself, that's pretty good. And also you're very, very good therapist as well. And
thanks. But Tina, that wasn't because of me. That was because of you. You took the work and you did what you learned with it. So
well, take both too. Yes. And like you said, I always investigate. I always have a lot of curiosity. What in the beginning you said about my facial, which I did. I asked you, I went, I studied, I look at the chart, I investigated. I even dream about it. I dream about my clients, get up and what I have to do, things like that.
Yeah, there's definitely more because I know this is a bit of an interview, so it's a little bit different than a traditional face reading because we probably talk more about you. But there are more aspects on your face that I kind of like to tell you about because your ears come back and they're very close to the head, which actually shows that you're a very good listener and that actually you can probably hear multiple conversations going on at once. When the ears come out a little bit more, it shows someone that maybe they stop thinking, like they start thinking and they stop listening. Or they might not hear everything. So actually, you're a very good listener, which makes you a good interviewer.
It's funny. It's either I'm a good listener, I can listening to many conversations at the same time from 2-3 different people, or
See?
I just tune out. And I don't hear anything at all. No matter
that
how
actually
loud
shows your forehead. And the reason is because you actually have this very open third eye. It's like very apparent. And this is actually called the seat of the stamp in face reading. And I'll talk about that another time. But it's actually showing that you can really rise above things and you can see things for what they are. So sometimes you actually have to remove yourself from a situation. And what's actually, it's funny that you said this. Would you say you're a very private person?
Yeah, it's funny. Yes, I have two sides of me. A lot of people don't know. A lot of people, if you see me, knowing me through this YouTube now, I'm very extroverted, which I am. However, I'm extremely private as well.
That's your eyelids. You know, it shows like you have what's called the hooded eyelids. Cher had this. You know, it's like it's this kind of mysterious aspect about yourself where you can really be in front of someone or a situation, but also have yourself completely removed at the same time.
Yes.
It makes you very alluring. You know, it makes you kind of have this mysterious quality about you, which is a good thing. You know, but it's funny. It shows that you value your privacy.
Very much so. I can be a loner, which I'm a loner most of the time, and quite. I mean, who do you see that would go to the movie theater by herself, or just do things by herself all the time? And if I have friends that asking me to go, sometimes I'm like, no, I want to go alone. I'll just go in, buy what I want, and out like that. I'm like most males, just go in, get what you want, and out like within half an hour, done.
Well, that's also the nose too. It shows this directness, and then also too, you have a lot of liver chi. You know, that's the wood element right here, which is the ability to be direct. And you know what's you have these really great eyebrows. Are you wearing any makeup right here?
I have like eyebrows pencils, that
Okay.
pencil out because, just kind of bring in a little bit of darkness to my eyebrows.
Is that the natural shape?
I can't even tell. I can't even tell its natural shape because, we pluck our eyebrows as a woman.
Yeah.
And so when we
do they grow back when you pluck them?
I'm sorry?
Do they grow back when you pluck them?
They do grow back. Yes,
yeah,
they do grow back. So we always keep it that shape. So I can't even tell you if it's my natural shape or not, but I draw along my hairlines. How about that? I brush it to make it thick, look darker. That's what it is.
Well, you have the eyebrows that go up, which like there's a little bit of space above them, which actually shows that you have really high standards for yourself, and actually you probably hold yourself to a very high standard, which is a good thing. So you probably really work hard to present yourself in the world in a certain way.
Well, in terms of ethic, yeah. Pretty much, very much.
Well, that's also the nose. The nose is about ideals, and like you have these really beautiful. What's nice is I was always taught, if you have a long nose, you have ideals about changing the world. If you have strong cheekbones, you have ideals about. You have the authority to change the world, and if you have both, you can change the world.
Yeah.
So you have both of those things.
I definitely, that would be one of my ideal too, is to, to change the world for the better. And maybe that's what this YouTube is for. I'm passionate about and it's just not changing in small ways, changing in my own world, but also changing in every aspect of our life, body, mind, soul, so that would change the whole world as well. And then at the political level, depends how you look at it, so that's what it is.
Yeah. Are you able to edit any of this video?
Yes, I can edit that, but we don't have to record it,
Yeah, okay, this last bit I want to talk to you about, but I think it should be private.
All right then, guys, we're just gonna, we have enough of Travis to show us his gift on facial reading. Unless you want something else that you would like to share with the audience, Travis. Anything you would like to share about, this skill, this you are offering in your classes, please definitely share with the audience right now.
Yeah, sure. The one thing, I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but I learned this from my teacher, Lillian Bridges, who passed away last year. And she was really wonderful. And she taught me that people actually know who they are. And sometimes a facial reading reminds them of who they are and where they're going. And that actually nothing is really set in stone. So, a lot of the times, I think sometimes when we look for, the astrology or the tarot or even the face reading, sometimes people tell us who we are, but I just want to remind people that they know who they are and they really know where they're going. They just
it's just a confirmation, and it's a motivation to like, hey, you know what? I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
I got it. I'm on the right path. So love that. I love that advice. So guys, I just would like to thank everyone for tuning in and listening till the end of this video. I hope you really, enjoyed this. Subscribe this video, click like and share this video to your friends and family. And if you would like to get a personal facial reading with Travis, contact him. I'll get his information here, his contact here. And if you would like to learn from him, contact him as well. All right, Travis. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your gift. Thank you. And everyone, thank you for being here. Until the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, guys.